It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
First and foremost, how are you feeling?
I am feeling a little better. My meds are kicking in and helping me. So I guess that's a good thing.
And how is your belly?
My belly is full.
Tell me about your mushrooms, because you sent me a recipe way too late. It was already cooking day when you sent me possibly the best recipe I never ate. I did not make.
They are so good. Oh my goodness. I hate mushrooms. But these are just the best mushrooms. They cook for 9 hours in like butter and burgundy wine and
yeah, they do. 9 hours. Say that again, because I'm sure somebody has heard that and said, well, that's a mistake.
It is definitely not. It is 9 hours. They cook all flipping day. I have to get up. That's the first thing I start cooking. I wake up, get the mushrooms going, and then I can rest for a few hours before I start cooking everything else.
What time do you eat generally when the whole clan is there? What is your typical Thanksgiving eating schedule?
4-ish. People start showing up. I think people started showing up around 11 and, just hung out and played games and, goo goo gaga over my nephew's baby. And
there's always a baby.
There's always a baby. And then, just kind of slowly build to the big meal, which is wonderful. And then everybody kind of collapses for a little while. And then we get back up and have dessert.
Do you dress formally? Like, are you, do you wear ties and stuff?
No way. This is Arizona. Like, formal wear is flip-flops.
We're a pajama Thanksgiving family. Like, it's like straight up, I break out the snowflake pajamas. I mean, it's not like matching. We don't match, but we're that casual. So we cook all day and now, of course, we've started cooking the day before. That's a new thing this year. Usually we do everything the day of. But this year we cook before. And so by the time we eat, and we dress it up, we'll put out the tablecloth and the nice stuff, but it's only out for like the duration of dinner and then everything goes away. It's like it never happened. And then it's turkey soup day. The day after is immediately turkey soup day, because you make the leftovers and we make a bone broth. That's kind of our tradition. So it smells like turkey for 3 days straight.
I need to learn how to do like a bone, like do something with the carcass, because I feel guilty throwing it away. And I'm like, there are people who know what to do with this. And I just dump it in the trash. And I was like, I really should do something, but I just don't.
And we take the neck bones and we make a necklace out of the ones that remain that we're not using we sharpen tiny arrowheads out of most of them. Is
that what your children wear to their Hunger Games camp? Their turkey bone, neck bone necklaces?
That's right.
Don't mess with me.
The downside of Thanksgiving at our house is it's generally pretty quiet with regard to media. We don't usually watch a bunch of movies or anything. So this week has been pretty quiet. Have you seen anything good?
We went to Coco, which just as a family we just all absolutely loved. I think it's one of the strongest Pixar films they've made in a while.
Oh, goodness!
Just brilliant movie. The music is so perfectly. I mean, it had to be good with the music because it's about a kid who wants to be a musician. So you got to guarantee that the music's going to work. But it's so effectively tied into just like Mexican culture and the Day of the Dead and everything. I was really kind of surprised because the trailers had been really underwhelming. But I will say, the Frozen short that happens before the movie, Olaf's Frozen Adventure, it's like a full flippin' half hour. It is like a TV, like one of those Christmas TV specials, and it's about on par as like a Christmas TV special. It's tedious. Both kids actually looked over to me and at different times and were like, when is this going to be over?
Oh no.
I mean, that says everything. It's awful. And not to mention it's just a terrible short anyway. So if we go see Coco again in the theater, I am going to make sure we go to a theater with reserved seating so that we can show up a full half hour late and skip that whole thing, because it was a torture.
Oh, that's so terrible. Well, they were saying that that particular short's only going to be running in limited release. So
thank goodness.
So I hope it disappears eventually.
I do too.
It's worth seeing on the big screen, right, Coco?
Oh, it's beautiful. Like what they do with the Land of the Dead. I mean, it's a beautiful world that they've created, and it's just, I mean, it was just and it's a really powerful, touching film. Loved it.
I've only seen of it. I've only seen the, I'm Maria Menounos, and this is, her thing. Do you have Maria Menounos before the movies?
Yeah.
Oh, Maria, what has come of you?
You used to host Entertainment Tonight,
right? What?
Those were the halcyon days.
How the mighty have fallen. Have you noticed she's like hawking her own website now? Visit me at mariamenounos.com. Oh, Maria. Anyway, the shorts that they've been playing before that about Coco are all about the music and the attention to detail that they put toward the guitar and the fingerings and the capturing all the guitar, the playing of the guitar in animation. That's legit, that the fingering's all right. It's all GoPro'd and turned into, CG, and it's you could follow along.
Wow, that's interesting.
I can't imagine, I can't think of a movie that has done that before. And so the clips that I've seen are straight up, like all the bends are right, it's amazing.
And that's not something I would know. Like, I wouldn't be able to watch him play and go, oh, he's totally hitting the right notes.
Yeah.
But I mean, he does, like, you can see his fingers moving on the guitars more so than just kind of what you see, like the animated strum of just the hand moving up and down, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
they do a good job. I mean, it's Pixar. They're really all about the authenticity and just kind of really putting their all into the world. So,
well, I'm really pleased to hear that, and especially with all the Pixar sequels going on right now. It's nice to see something new and fresh that doesn't have a 2 or a 3 behind it.
And this is one where I feel I certainly hope that there's no need for a sequel to this. Like, I think they do a great job of telling this story. If it's successful, it's like, just leave it alone. You don't need to make a sequel to it.
Coco 2. Everyone's really dead.
Yeah. But we'll see how this one does. Last year, Moana did really well over the holiday weekend. People aren't expecting Coco to quite hit it. But I'm curious if where things are going to fall. I think Coco, it's the only big release, so it's probably going to take the weekend. And then I don't know, maybe it will be JLA or Justice League behind it, and then I don't know, Wonder maybe? I don't know. Wonder's been up there. It's definitely a popular one. It's good alternative programming.
Yeah, man. It's I mean, that's where everybody I'm hearing is talking about the Wonder certainly more than Coco.
No, it definitely looks like it says Coco is starting off strong, heading towards a 70 million plus 5-day opening. So it might not top Moana, but it still looks like it's going to do
strong opening weekend.
Yeah. And then Justice League is they say playing mostly as expected. It's going to try to reach and hit 60 million domestically. They're not quite sure where it's going to land, but and then Wonder. And then Wonder will be number 3. So
did we talk about Justice League yet? You and I, have we talked about it?
No, only briefly on Slack. You said you were kind of.
Yeah.
You kind of thought it was okay.
It was fine. I didn't hate it.
I enjoyed it. I had a fun time. I thought the characters, I enjoyed the League. I, certainly look forward to more. I'm curious to see how they're going to develop it, but I love seeing the team coming together. I thought it had a really nice dynamic with the 6 of them, really, eventually.
Man, Andy, Henry Cavill's face.
Oh, the digital mustache removal?
It was so bad. I
completely agree.
It was so bad. It was a consistent low point in the movie, and I couldn't take it seriously. And after that, my kids too. Like that was the thing we left the movie talking about, how stupid that was. And we would reenact the movie. Probably all the takes that didn't make it into the movie of the actors like laughing at Henry Cavill during sensitive scenes. Like, we have these little skits where one of us plays Henry Cavill and we try to be serious, and it's when they break. It was horrific and terrible and just a bad choice, and that it comes from a legal dispute in an era when we know how to make great mustaches from makeup. that they chose this route and wouldn't let him. And was it Paramount who said, you're contractually obligated to keep the mustache because you're in the middle of shooting Mission Impossible 6? That they didn't just recreate the mustache in makeup it's a horrendous offense to something that is going to be on film forever. Like this is it. This was their one chance to make the Return of Superman look normal, and they failed.
They should have just had him come back with a mustache.
You know what? That would have been better. That would have been better than what they ended up with. It was ridiculous. You were right. Andy was right. Hashtag Andy was right. The big bad, the villain, Steppenwolf, was underwhelming. And you're right. Also, the League coming together was fine. But how stupid was it? Again, you had a lot of really solid points about this movie. How stupid was it? Truly. That Aquaman had no water in the end.
Yeah.
It's a completely generated landscape. Add a lake, people.
Right. Give him something to do.
God, add a pitcher. Just give him some water, a hose, whatever.
Give him the Wonder Twins. One of them always forms into water.
They always form into a bucket of water. Come on. So I found that really disappointing, and I thought his, Aquaman for me was the weakest point. I think they just didn't do enough for Momoa, and he ended up being kind of a catchphrase, bucket, like my man, oh yeah. Like it was just, he's the guy they're using to make ringtones, like I can
right.
see making. Whenever Andy calls, oh yeah, my man, hoo-ah, humna.
How did you know?
Stupid. There's some stupid stuff in there, but I did. You're right. I did enjoy it, and I think Batfleck is fine. Gal Gadot is great, and the highlight was probably the interaction between Cyborg and the Flash. Although the Flash's running was stupid. What's he doing, kicking his legs and arms out? It was just weird. That was not good character design.
Oh, I didn't have any issues with that, but.
Well, it was middling, but it checked all the teenage boxes for me. Like when I let myself go into the zone, I had a pretty good time. So it was good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Fun times. It was good enough. They did a good job with it that I thought made up for some of the past problematic films. And so here's hoping part 2 really makes up for everything.
Here's hoping indeed. Should we talk trailers?
We should.
Why don't you go first?
My trailer, Pete. Of course, now I've forgotten what it was. Let me go back to my link of my trailer that I picked.
It's really stuck with you.
It was so good. What a trailer.
I created an Instagram post about it.
No, so the trailer I picked is for a film called People You May Know, which is being released by Orchard. It had a trailer release recently, and it's one of those kind of weird ones where I don't think it's getting a theatrical release. It played at a festival, and now it's going straight to DVD and digital really kind of next week. It's coming really quickly here. But it looked so good, and I thought it looked like a really interesting spin on social media and the way social media taps into our lives these days. The story is about this introverted guy who is completely avoiding social media. He's trying to find a girl to connect with who, they can just have a real connection, but he keeps running into people who's like, well, I only date guys who, when I can do a deep goog on them, as that one girl said, which was very funny. It's
goog.
A deep goog.
So bad.
Oh, I know.
We are so old.
It's a really funny world out there right now. And so he ends up meeting this girl who is a social media guru, and she's just like, you're the perfect guy. I want to take you as an experiment, and I want to see what I can do with you. Because he was dabbling, I guess he's good in Photoshop and stuff, and he Photoshopped himself into this photo at I think it looks like a basketball game, and he's next to Usher. And she's like, it was really impressive, but I know it's fake. But I think you're really interesting. I want to take you and I want to mold you and see if I can create this social media phenomenon that all of a sudden everybody likes. And so together they kind of come up with this whole plan to kind of make him this person that he's completely not. And it becomes this kind of this worldwide phenomenon, and it's so interesting to watch how social media can kind of turn a person like that. And I mean, even Usher at one point runs into Usher at this bar, and Usher's like, "Hey, from Vegas," and like, because he's seen the photo that he photoshopped of the two of them together and thinks it's real. It just is. It speaks so much to our world right now, and I thought it just looked really fascinating. It's directed by Sherwin Shalati. I'm not familiar with Sherwin. I think Sherwin has done a few little things, but not much. Just some shorts and some TV things and stuff like that, but not a whole heck of a lot. This is kind of the first real branch into the feature world, and even the cast I'm not that familiar with. Nick Thune, Halston Sage, Kaylee Smith Westbrook, Nicholas Rutherford, Carly Chaikin. It's an interesting looking trailer. I don't know the people, but I think the movie looked fascinating. What do you think?
This movie is up there with your best horror movies in my book right now. I do like Nick Thune a lot, and I don't know. I feel like he's one of those that this could be a movie that allows you to see kind of who he's, who he can be. He was in things like Knocked Up and Extract, which I thought was a fantastic little comedy. He had a small part in Extract, and so I like seeing him in these kinds of things, and to see him get a little bit of a bigger role is exciting. It's nice to see his career mature like this. So I think it's going to be fun. We'll see. We'll see if I walk out and can avoid the cold sweats.
Yeah, right. Well, we all have our horror worlds, but Pete, this is yours. So, like I said, it's not getting any sort of theatrical, but it looks like you'll be able to start hopefully streaming it next week. So there you go. People you may know.
People you may know. My trailer it's been floating around for a long time internationally in the festival circuit, but it is not coming to us until 2018. It is The Party, new film from writer-director Sally Potter. Stars a whole lot of people: Patricia Clarkson, Bruno Ganz, Jerry Jones, Emily Mortimer, Cillian Murphy, Kristen Scott Thomas. Scott Thomas. Timothy Spall is in it. It is an amazing cast. And it is essentially a talkie dinner party story. It reminds me of movies like one of my favorites, The Last Supper, that I know you don't like as much as I do, but it was great. And it's shot all in black and white. It looks beautiful. It is, the IMDb says, Janet hosts a party to celebrate her new promotion, but once the guests arrive, it becomes clear that not everything is going to go down as smoothly as the red wine. How cheeky. It gets crazier than that. It ends up being a story of revenge and retribution and some slapping, and there's a gun, and it looks like tight dialogue, a lot of wit, very British, and I'm very excited to see this movie. Sally Potter is interesting. I haven't seen a lot from Sally Potter, but she did Orlando. I guess, what was that, 97?
It was a weird movie. That's
right.
My recollection.
It was very weird. And she's, her background is very much in the visual arts. And so this movie, Yes, did you see Yes in 2004?
No. We should have paired Yes and No together.
We should. That would have been very interesting, because apparently Yes is told in iambic pentameter, the film. And so you look at it, it absolutely has jumped on my list. I'm very curious. Stars Joan Allen and Simon Abkarian and Sam Neill. And so I'm really curious about, making these choices that are sort of overtly for the arts, and kind of munging the arts in her film. So I'm very curious about it. This one looks less weird than her previous films. She hasn't done a whole lot, it looks like, in the last several years. She did Ginger and Rosa in 2012, but The Party is the first film that she is acting as writer-director since then. I'm excited to see it. How did it hit you?
This is the talkie dinner party type of movie that I just love. When some dark secrets pop up and all of a sudden just it goes bonkers. I think that the black and white is a smart strategy. It gives it like this real neo-noir sort of feel to this dark story as it unfolds, which I think is great, especially as it turns to murder. Patricia Clarkson has my favorite line in the trailer, which was, "It might be deleterious to your campaign strategy, but you could consider murder." Which was just fantastic. I was like so overly like talky and everything, but it just evolves to murder. I just loved it. So the cast, everybody in this looks spot on perfect, and it looks like a really interesting story to tell. So this trailer, I hadn't even heard of this film, but it's definitely something that's on my must-see list.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm very excited about it. It has been floating around since February of 2017, where it opened at the Berlin International Film Festival, and then all around the world. It seems to be opening with solid reviews. It hits... Oh, geez. It starts its world release December of 2017. It hits us February 16th, 2018. But our friends in Sweden will get it on January 5th, along with Poland and Spain. So, maybe we'll get a report from there when this movie opens. There you
Awesome.
Go.
Cool.
All right, Andy, it's time for the list.
Time for the lists. Fantastic.
This was not as hard as last week.
No, there's a lot of options.
Can we just take a minute and be thankful for that? I'd like to be thankful for that because last week sucked.
Last week was a challenge. Yeah, this week, since we talked about Wild Tales, the fantastic anthology film directed by Damian Cifrón from Argentina, as the final film in our Ricardo Darín series. Since it was an anthology film, we said, hey, let's come up with our lists of our top 3 anthology films. So here we are.
I hope that we don't overlap, but if we do, at least I feel like we probably have a deep bench.
I have a very deep bench,
yeah.
So I am totally fine just winging it. Now, what was your line with anthology films? Like, did you have any lines, or were you pretty flexible with anthology film definition?
Well, okay. For example, so I brought this up to my family, and they brought up a film that I think would be on the line that I did not accept. I did not accept for a number of reasons, but so take that for what it's worth. The movie is Bedtime Stories. And it's an example of a film with one consistent through line where he's, the main character is telling these stories to the kids that become little films interjected into, these little vignettes interjected into the main narrative of the story. I did not accept that as an anthology film.
Okay.
That is definitely not, that crosses the line.
Yeah, it's tricky because I was like, okay, so there were some, well, especially, I referenced in our group, the Flick Chart has anthology film as a genre, and you can kind of see. And they've got some on there that I'm like, I don't know if I'd call that an anthology film.
Like what?
Some
what
of them
what crosses the line for you?
Well, Monty Python's The Meaning of Life they had on there. And to me, it's like I can see why they'd call it an anthology film, but to me, that's really more of just a sketch comedy movie. Which
that is definitely on the list for me.
Okay, well that's fine.
Yeah.
I was torn. I was like, gosh, I guess I can see why they would call it an anthology film, and you could. I just in my mind I was like, well, I feel like it's more sketch comedy, but it could be. You're right. It could fall into that, and I'm okay with that. And then there were some that's like, because my wife and I were talking, and she brought up, I can't remember what she brought up. Was it Magnolia? And I'm like, I don't know, because that's really. I feel like the stories are all interwoven constantly throughout the film, so I don't feel like that's an anthology film. I feel like an anthology film is really story. Can you get your full stories?
Yeah.
So
I agree.
So I didn't count those.
Magnolia doesn't count either. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think we're pretty much on the same page. There's some, we might have some some things. But.
Yeah, I think so. But I think it's also, well, I don't know. Let's just see where it goes. Do you want to start?
I am going to start, and the first one I am going to talk about, Pete, is an interesting film that I had actually never heard of before I was doing my John Carpenter watching all of his films. I went through and watched everything that John Carpenter had done. And I came across this really great film. Now, technically, it's a movie made for TV, but it still is a feature-length film. It's called Body Bags, and he did it with Tobe Hooper back in '93. And it's this fun little anthology film. Now, I should also say, as far as my list goes, I'm not necessarily picking my favorite, like my top 3 favorite of all time or anything, but I'm picking 3 that I think are really enjoyable in the world of anthology. And this one I picked because it is horror, and I think it has some really kind of just crazy comedy bits. You've got this 3 stories in it. You've got the story about this serial killer at a gas station that also has, and I should also mention, there's tons of great cameos throughout this, like director cameos, like Wes Craven pops up, Sam Raimi pops up. And so you've got this great one, The Gas Station. Then you've got this one with Stacy Keach called Hair, where he gets this hair transplant that it's like this alien parasite hair thing. And then this other one, this Eye story, where Mark Hamill, he's a baseball player who gets an eye transplant and then gets taken over by the personality of the thing. Plus, you have the interstitial story woven together that has John Carpenter actually playing this crazy morgue guy who works in a morgue with Tobe Hooper, and I don't know. It was just really fun, really light, really enjoyable. It's certainly not one of my favorites, but I had such a good time watching it. I definitely think it's worth checking out. So that's my first one, Body Bags.
I have never even heard of this film.
I know. It's like nobody's heard of it, but it's definitely worth watching.
And it's totally predictable that you would start with a horror film.
Of course.
And I will be surprised if your top 2 are not also horror. How about that?
Well, let me just say that's something else I've been trying to think of. Is like I'm trying to kind of put my own rules on. So I didn't purposely want to pick all horrors. So they're not all horrors.
Okay, all right. Well, my first film is it's a delightful little black and white talkie from 1993. And when I say 1993, I mean 2003.
Oh, that 1993.
Yes, well, the 2000s. It's the new 90s. Can we say that?
Sure.
From Jim Jarmusch, and it is a film, Coffee and Cigarettes. It's got 11 little stories in it, which is a lot for one of these things. But I thought some of these vignettes were super, super fun. We've got the highlight for me, and I feel like in these things we should probably talk about like our very favorite, as you say, because because it can get lost in the narrative of the movie. But one of the things that stands out here is, Alfred Molina and Steve Coogan have this hysterical conversation where Alfred Molina discovers that they're potentially cousins and that they should do some sort of project to celebrate that they're cousins. And Coogan does not like Alfred Molina, and there are some wonderful lines. It is absurdly British in their conversation, and I adore it. Cate Blanchett plays herself. She plays herself and a non-famous cousin named Shelley, and they talk to one another, and it's great. Jack White and Meg White talk about Jack's Tesla coil. There's some really fantastic ones. I think in terms of the best sort of stunt cast, this is a great cast all up and down the board. But Bill Murray is in it. He plays a chef, and it really, it's all about his kind of. It just fits the Bill Murray aesthetic for me, because Bill Murray is known to just show up in crazy places, and he just shows up in a diner as a cook. And they have this conversation with GZA and RZA of the Wu-Tang Clan about the dangers of caffeine and nicotine, and it ends up being very, very funny. So I think this is a delightful little film with some really fun vignettes, and it has the same. One of the things we really liked about Wild Tales is that it thematically it's consistent across all of the vignettes, right? Because it's told in the hands of one director, and for me, I think this film kind of fits that bill as well. Coffee and Cigarettes.
Nice. Nice. That's a really enjoyable one. I'm not a big Jim Jarmusch fan, but that is one that I like. And I like that more than Night on Earth, his other anthology film.
Yes.
that he did.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And the one that you highlighted with Molina is, I think, probably my favorite in that thing, too. It's just very, very funny.
What I call you? Can I say no? That has become, it's one of those lines. There are a couple of them in this movie, but it's one of those lines that I find myself quoting sort of unconsciously when somebody says something. Can I say no? Steve Coogan is so good.
He's great. Yeah. He is a very funny guy.
What's your number 2?
All right, well, my number 2 is a fantastic Mexican film from 2000, Amores Perros, directed by Alejandro González Iñárritu, which is a wild ride. There's 3 stories that we have in here. The nice thing about this one is it's 3 stories, but they all actually are connected by this car crash that happens in it. And that's something I really enjoy about this one is the 3 stories are all happening like within the same space. They all, it's 3 lives kind of intersecting, but we just happen to get the 3 different stories. We get one story about a teen living in the slums who kind of gets involved in dogfighting. We get a story about this model who gets into a car crash and she's got her dog. And then you've got this strange homeless man that's like, he's kind of also like this hitman. Really great characters, really great stories. The dogfighting stuff is intense. My wife won't watch it because of the dogfighting stuff that happens in here. But I love the stories and I love the way that everything kind of is woven together. And my favorite is definitely the one about the vagrant, the guy who's you find out is this professional hitman, El Chivo, and his story. It's some great darkness, some interesting themes of violence and inequality all in Mexico City, with this class divide between kind of this homeless guy, this guy living in the slums, and this rich model. An interesting kind of world spread across the 3 of them. I really enjoy this film. This is definitely one to watch. It can be a little hard for some people who don't want to see the dogfighting stuff, but it's well worth your time.
Gael Garcia Bernal is terrific in that movie. It's pretty grim.
But it's so good.
This ain't no Coco.
It ain't no Coco. No, it's not.
That's a good choice. Yeah. I went light for my remaining 2, as you can probably predict. One of them, my number 2, is the fantastic Mel Brooks film History of the World Part 1, which tells a story of different times through history through the eyes of Mel Brooks, starting with these. I don't even know if I can get through it. These are the 15 10 commandments, Moses on the Mount. It is a absolutely terrific romp through time. I think it may be the first Mel Brooks film that I ever saw, and thanks Dad. And he's just a real treasure, comedic treasure, and this movie I find is just a riot all the way through, from the opening frame to the close, so that's definitely my number 2 pick.
That is a great choice. Really great choice. I haven't seen that in a very long time, but it might be my first Mel Brooks experience also, now that I think back.
Yeah.
It hit that at that time where it was on HBO a lot when I was a kid. And I feel like I probably saw it a lot when my parents weren't watching me.
Well, it was
what I was up to.
Totally. It was one of those movies that just had, he had the gift of being around some incredibly funny people all the time. But this movie had all of them doing their very best stuff, right? From Dom DeLuise, Madeline Kahn, and Harvey Korman, Count de Monet, Cloris Leachman, Gregory Hines, obviously, Shecky Green, Sid Caesar. These were just amazing people, and that Orson Welles did the narration. It's just a perfect package for me. And as much as I adore Young Frankenstein, I think I would put this one on first.
Interesting.
There you go.
Well, for my number one, Pete, as tempted as I am to go with movie 43.
No. Do we get a veto on these lists? Like, do we get a veto?
Movie 43 was horribly guilty, but I had so much fun watching that. I have to say that. No, for my final pick, I'm actually jumping into a classic one. I'm going all the way back to 1945. And I don't know if this is like the earliest anthology film, but it's the earliest one that I am aware of. It's this really kind of just a nicely creepy kind of gothic horror anthology that the Ealing Studios made called Dead of Night. And they had Alberto Cavalcanti, Charles Crichton, Basil Dearden, Robert Hamer directing different parts of this story that it feels very much like the precursor to a lot of the setups of like Trilogy of Terror and Tales from the Crypt and all those other sorts of movies where you have this horror story that is kind of happening and these people come together and then they talk about something. They talk about their story and you get kind of this horror story, and then the next person talks about their story, and you kind of go through them. Like The Vault of Horror is another one. A lot of great kind of those classic gothic horror anthologies, and I feel like this is kind of the precursor of all of them. It's got a great cast. Michael Redgrave's in it. I think Googie Withers pops up in here. And you've got, and again, it's like these people, this all come together in this mansion, and this guy's like, I've never met any of you, but I've seen you all in a dream that I keep having. And this doctor tries to help him, and meanwhile, everybody starts talking about their stories, and they're all kind of, you realize as it builds toward this twist ending, what's happening here. And it's a really kind of a nice film. It's not too scary, but it's nice and creepy. I really enjoy it. And my favorite of them all is probably, there's this story, I think it's the last one, where Michael Redgrave, he plays this ventriloquist, and he starts to believe that his dummy is alive, and his dummy is really amoral and just like this awful character. And it just totally starts like mentally affecting him and everything. And it's just this fantastic, like creepy horror movie. And ventriloquist dummies are creepy anyway.
They are.
And this one really, I feel like, kicked off creepy ventriloquist dummies for all time. So definitely worth checking out. It is 1945's Dead of Night.
That should be our list at some point, is the creepiest ventriloquist dummy movies.
Right?
Man, you can always go back to the well on those. You can. Yes, there's indeed. Always more. There are greater depths to plumb.
Indeed, there are.
My number one pick, yes, it is Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. This is the 1983 Monty Python film directed by Terry Jones. It was the very last of the Python films to feature all six of the Python members. Graham Chapman died in '89. I really like this movie, and I, it's hard to. I mean, I like this movie because it's just straight up funny, because it's enormously quotable, even this long or this far from its release. It's funny even to people who haven't seen it. You can, well, I don't know. At least they're kind to me, and they say good things when we talk about it. But I find it's one of those. It's like History of the World. You can just continue to go back to it. The of the individual pieces, I think the one that I like the most, probably the most memorable from when I saw it, was the sex education sequence. where they actually teach a boarding school class of boys sex education where the teacher actually has sex with somebody with his wife on a table, which is that's the one I remember the most because of how old I was when I saw this, I'm sure. But the funniest one was absolutely the waitress or the waiter, and would you like a mint? It is wafer thin.
Wafer thin.
If that hasn't permeated deeply into the fine dining culture, I don't know any other bit of media that has. So that is definitely my pick.
And that's that's a brilliant sequence. The songs, you have to also just acknowledge the brilliant songs. Every Sperm is Sacred.
Yeah.
The Galaxy song, Christmas in Heaven. This film, while I may have issues calling it an anthology film, this to me is just a absolutely brilliant comedy. Monty Python's definitely at their top form here.
Could we have your liver? I mean, live organ transplants. Come on, it's brilliant. Top of their game. There you go. This was a more fun list to come up with. I had fun just because everything I chose was funny. But the fact that there were more anthology films that cropped up that were not horror movies. When we first talked about this list, I thought, oh my goodness, they're all horror movies. Andy's going to come up with all horrible horror movies. And it's gonna be really painful to talk about this, and I'm not gonna be able to find anything. There are a lot of these things, and they're actually good.
You were very worried about.
I was very worried. I was very worried because I have this in my head that I don't usually like anthology movies. It turns out I am wrong. My memory has been co-opted by the memories of bad anthologies, and there are some really good ones that I enjoy.
There are.
Yeah.
I mean, Pulp Fiction, even Sin City.
I
and there are a lot of great horror movies. As many bad horror movies that are anthology films, there are also a lot of great ones that are definitely worth checking out. So.
The one I was thinking of last week when we talked about this was Cat's Eye. Drew Barrymore was in that one, and but I'm glad it didn't get picked. I don't think it's as good and as fun as I remember it.
It has its moments. The one, the Quitters Anonymous or Quitters Incorporated, whatever that one's called. I thought that one was just a fantastic element in that one. So it's got its good moments. It definitely does. So it's a fun world. I like anthology films, and so I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I've come back around. What does this do for our list next week?
Well, we're doing our listener's choice episode about Labyrinth. Jim Henson's film. I was wondering if we should do films that feature puppets.
Oh, okay.
I think that should give us some interesting ones to talk about.
Is there anything off limits?
Meet the Feebles. That's the only thing. Otherwise, you're good.
Damn, that was my number one. Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, I guess I'm fine with it. I guess the question is, I feel like it needs to be puppetry that's taking place in context of the film, not like stop motion sort of, which really is more animation. But sometimes it feels very puppety. But
I was thinking about something like are there picks that are too trite? Like, are you going to pick Yoda?
That's a good question. I guess that is puppetry. I guess that would be okay. But I'm going to try to be a little more. I personally am going to try to pick films where there's a little more puppetry happening within the film.
Okay. All right.
So
gentleman's agreement. Yoda is off the list.
Yoda should be off the list because otherwise we'll all end up with Star Wars movies.
Favorite movie about puppets except Yoda. Okay. I can deal with that.
Yes.
Excellent. Nice potting with you today, Andy. This was a fine Saturday matinee. Are you off to see anything?
No, we're actually, it's that time of year. We are actually going to pull the boxes out of the garage and set up all the Christmas stuff.
Oh,
ay, caramba.
God.
I know.
I'm not ready for that. I'm definitely not ready for that. We're going couch shopping today. I think there might be a new couch in my future. So we can't do any of the Christmas decorations because you never know how it's going to fit. The ensemble.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah.
Ensemble. All right.
You were supposed to do couch shopping yesterday.
I'm supposed to catch up in yesterday? Is that it? sentence?
You were supposed to go couch shopping yesterday.
Catch-upping. What is catch-upping? What the... I guess I was. But, the way we figure it is Black Friday is essentially now Black Weekend all the way through Cyber Monday. Like, every place that had the deals still has the deals. So,
right, you just can't get the doorbuster deals.
No.
Or maybe you can, but they're more likely sold out.
We don't bust doors, Andy. We do not bust doors.
We
are not of a door-busting family. Anyhow, thank you, everybody, all of our Patreon listeners who subscribe and support this show and help us do what we do and continue to grow what we do and how we do it. We sure appreciate your participation. And for our American listeners, happy Thanksgiving, belatedly. And now 'tis on to Christmas. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day, Andy.
You too.